maybe next week minor for you, or after, maybe, because once I finish this general management, I think we can conduct one for the portions that we cover in marketing and general management. Anyway, I will be in touch with my co-faculty. I will let you know. So, anything else? So, are you, see, you have to regularly, like, it is not part of the subject, but normally keep reading certain magazines like Economist, one of my favorite magazines, The Economist. It is a very beautiful magazine. Gives you, it covers almost everything on the earth. Just 1 minute. So, shall we start? Hello?
Sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir, we can start.
We have so after discussing about these 14 principles of management by Henry Fayol, just like the Henry Fayol has come up with this concept of what constitutes management. So he said, like, there are certain things that you do as part of management that we call it as functions. So in this functions of management, basically, uh, even though different authors have given different kind of classification regarding functions, so we will follow this. That is planning, organizing, coordinating, and controlling. So there are certain others who put under directing leadership. Some people put one extra function as part of as after organizing, that is staffing. So anyway, let us leave that. Uh, just like physics and chemistry, this is not a very well structured subject. And uh, as I have defined function, as I have defined my management, as this is a this is management means it is a both, it constitutes both art and science, right? Whereas physics and chemistry are pure sciences, maths are pure sciences, whereas professional courses like management, law, engineering, you know, these are all uh, these are all partly science and partly art. So there is a bit of haziness, right? So anyway, uh, in the last class we started with the planning function. So we have seen that planning function again has a sub-steps in it. That it has a mission statement. It starts with mission. statement where we sometimes we may have to review our mission statements, vision statements once in a while, like where, for example, NASA has changed its mission statement from reaching the moon to reaching Mars. Right now, it has a new mission to reach, and then we have then once you're sure about there is no change in your vision, then what you do is to reach that vision, we have to first of all find out you have to study our environment, reassess our strengths and weaknesses, and then you have to make some kind of use some, like for example SWOT analysis you have to do, then Porter's 5 forces, BCG matrix. See, all these are very important tools which can help us to understand our environment as well as ourselves. Right? Ourselves is the company in which you are working. So, we have to keep studying our environment. Whether some of your assumptions have to be, whether they are still valid or not. I told you, na, Henry Ford himself committed blunder because the success has entered into his head so much that he failed to see or study the environment. So in his own lifetime, even though he is a great personality, but because of his what do you call arrogance, he ended up acting as a second fiddle to General Motors. General Motors, at the right time, it has found that the so-called mass production strategy doesn't work. So they have went for segmentation, market segmentation. I think Professor Madhimurthy might have told you about this concept of segmentation. That means how it gets segmented and how you have to offer products as per the segments, a particular segment's expectations. So this is all we do. So we have to keep, we have to be see just like a living cell or a human being like ours. See, almost there is a kind of lot of correlation between a living organism and a living person, right? So that means if a person doesn't change with the environment, he is likely to die. A cell, if it doesn't change with the environment, it is likely to die. So change means either through mutation or changing its behavior to suit the environment. Only those organisms have. Similarly, like for example, I told you about the Kodak example now. It failed to see that markets have changed and no more the conventional photography kind of thing doesn't work, and it failed to see it's a good company, but it didn't took appropriate steps to diversify so that it need not no longer depend on its traditional product portfolio. Just like if you take ITC, it has found that there is a great threat to its cigarettes. So governments as well as uh, most of the governments started encouraging people to smoke. So at at the right time, they have diversified into hotels and then paper making, then confectionaries. No, now this is a very great company, and it is no more prisoner to a particular industry vertical, right? So this this particular, like that means you have to be always watchful, always on, like this. You have to be very, very careful about how you are doing it. So anyway, like we discussed some of these tools, like for example, SWOT analysis. So you study external origin and internal origin of the opportunities and strengths. All right. So uh, like what are those attributes which will help you to strengthen, uh, which will help you to achieve the objective? And then what are those internal attributes of the organization which may hamper your uh, to reach your objective, right? Similarly, like attributes of the environment which creates opportunities as well as it may have some it may pose threats, right? So here, this SWOT analysis is a very, very important tool. Like this SWOT analysis is also an important tool for you at a personal level. So whether suppose like you have an objective of appearing for civil services, so you have to look at what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and at the same time you also look like whether civil service is worthy attempt, and what are the kind of threats in uh, in reaching that particular goal, in achieving that goal. Like you have any issues like the environment in the sense uh, having the right kind of coaching institutes are in around, or the ecosystem, whether your friends are some of your friends are part of that, they are also participating in that uh, achieving that objective. So here you a SWOT analysis is done. Either it can be done at the organizational level or at the individual level, right? So this is one of the good tools that people use uh, in what do you call performing external and internal audit. Then next tool is Porter's five forces. So we said like just like any living organism, every enterprise, every company is under the constant threat from five directions. That is your your supplier might enter into your segment. That means say like instead of supplying material to you, if he thinks that your segment is very profitable, he will enter into that also, right? If your buyers, whoever is buying your products, he also may enter into your domain, because why instead of taking raw materials from somebody, why I'll myself will start supplying myself. Like for example, I told you about in the last class about these kind of things we see in corporate sector. Say for example, like Reliance. So it went on in initially it was a buyer of, it is maker of textiles, Vimal brand. They had a very beautiful brand called Vimal. And then they found that instead of making textiles, why don't we enter into the uh, domain where they get the raw material, that is polyester. So they went into polyester fabrication. Then they said like these polyesters come from petroleum derivatives. So they started their refinery. So and out of that they said like since the oil is the basic input for crude oil, crude oil is the basic input for these uh, a refinery chemical plant, they went into oil exploration. So they started exploring for oil. Huh? Somebody wants to talk? So they went into oil exploration, like they have come to Godavari Basin to explore oil, right? So like that, and now they started even buying foreign prospective foreign oil drilling. So similarly, like suppliers also product. Like for example, suppliers like we have many examples of that, right? Like for example, uh, um, or like so instead of Reliance started diversifying into supplying. They started building up their own instead of supplying crude. They had since they have a surplus crude, and they one of the byproducts of polyester yarn is the petroleum product. So they started setting up their own petrol bunks. So similarly, like threat of new entrants. So I told you the example of Times of India when it is when Times of India wants to enter into South India market, it came with a like 1 rupee per day newspaper, and it has become a big threat for the Hindu, which is a major English newspaper in South India. So they said like they had to change their marketing strategy by saying that we will also supply Hindu paper at 1 rupee per day. All right. So similarly, like industry rivalry, like there is always some kind of rivalry from the existing players. Like for example, like Hindu has a existing rivalry with Indian Express. Already there are existing rivalry with Indian Express, then Deccan Herald, and then Deccan Chronicle. So there are so many English newspapers even in the local level also. So and then threat of substitutes is another biggest nuisance. See, threat of substitutes is normally a very big headache uh, in electronic industry. Particularly, this happens quite frequently. Like just like pagers were substituted by cell phones. Similarly, like the example of uh, like
Cameras also substituted by mobiles these days.
huh?
Camera,
Yeah. So,
music player, everything.
so almost now modern cell phone is acting like a Swiss Army knife, right? It can be your stenographer. It can be acting as your within cell phone itself. You have Swiss Army knife kind of apps. Like it can act as a mirror, and then it can act as a scale, and then it can act as a compass. You know, so many things. So all are built into one, right? So when cell phones became a very good substitute for normal cameras. In fact, like more the cameras that are being incorporated into cell phone in a way threatened the existence of even Canon, the professional camera, right? So in fact, like now you have excellent image processing algorithms which will give like even like the guy with a Parkinson disease, even he can take a beautiful photo now. It can do some kind of error correction in shaking. And so that is the like kind of things that we are seeing now. So here, what I mean to say is that threat of substitutes is another biggest issue. Like just like we have seen in audio market, like where initially gramophone records were there, they were substituted by uh, audio tapes and audio tapes to CDs and then pen drive, and then finally the cloud has come for you. Probably in future they might directly put a chip in your head to you can avoid using some cloud. So anyway, so similarly, like you have BCG matrix. So uh, have you have you applied for so Microsoft this?
Yeah, yes, sir, we have.
So what was the cash cow for Microsoft? I think we have discussed, na?
Operating systems.
Huh?
Operating system was the cash cows.
Cash cows, and then anyway, their stars are what is it? Star?
Cloud computing.
Huh?
Computing services.
Yeah, cloud computing, cloud, right? Cloud services, and then anyway, dog is what?
Microsoft
Bing.
Bing.
Search engines and
Bing
edge
or
browsers.
right? And anyway, question marks. I don't know. Like question marks, we can say probably MS Dynamics or MS projects. So mainly Microsoft's cash cow is MS Office because and Windows. So they have long back recovered there. In fact, like now, Windows is acting such a beautiful cash cow for Microsoft. They say like Microsoft has a 85% profit margin in their cash cow products like Windows and uh, Office products. So in a way, like they have stars like the cloud services as well as uh, some gaming. What is that? X, Xbox.
Xbox. Yes, sir.
Xbox. Right. So like that we have. So people. I told you now, like uh, this BCG matrix can be applied at corporate level also. Like at the like for example, I told you in the last class that TCS, like for example, Tata Sons have around they participate in around 90 industry verticals, right from software to salt. So and they can put their own BCG matrix for at the level of Tata Sons, where TCS acts as its our cash cow, as well as there are certain dogs also. There are even see stars, right? So anyway, you can take a company and find out what are its which of the products are or which of the divisions are its cash cows, and then like you can apply this BCG matrix for even ITC, right? Not all the divisions of ITC are equally profitable. Okay, so some generate extra cash. So anyway, like tools
Sir,
like
one
this.
doubt.
Ah,
I need a clarification. I used to think that question mark like with high investment and low returns also, why will the company will maintain that? I thought this and I read something and I got one idea. Tell me if I'm wrong or right. Okay. Uh, Normally, big companies like Google or Amazon, something MNCs with lot of money behind them, like lot of money coming inside. They don't want to keep the money. They don't want to keep the money. They want to invest in something. So while they will enter some new market, like for example, the recent days groceries. If a Flipkart will get from normal everyday items and electronics, and from those sales it will get profits. That is it,
Mhm.
high profit and high returns. Sorry, high
Which
investment and
one?
high returns.
Which one?
For Flipkart or Amazon, the shopping basic one, it's
No,
high.
actually, Flipkart is losing money. It is not a profitable. It is not
No,
in
no, no,
profits.
not Flipkart. I mean, like for anything, like Amazon, let's say. High
Actually,
profit, high
Amazon
returns.
India is also losing money.
Yes, sir, because now it's losing because of this regulations and everything. But in general, I'm telling,
Mhm. Okay, yeah. Let us assume they are profitable.
they are profitable. They are getting high returns from high investments. Like
Hmm.
investments will be high because they do the thing on large scale.
Hmm.
Uh, but when they want to come into new industry, they will always start with the low returns with high investment. Like they will give offers and they will put in advertisements and everything. They start with
Hmm.
low returns, and
Hmm.
then they may go to dog. That sector may become dog to it, and
Hmm.
after that it will become cow, or sorry, it will become star, and then at last cow is the most wanted one for anyone,
Yes.
like low
Yes.
investment with high returns. Is
Hmm.
it right, or
No,
BCG
no.
Matrix
Actually,
thinking same?
cash cow means why we call it as cash cow is most of the investment that you have made on that particular product is already recovered. So, for example, that's what I say. See, nowadays Microsoft doesn't have to invest so much for product development of MS Office because it was there only some occasional upgradation. But whereas if they have to start cloud services, maybe sometimes they have to start from scratch. So what normally people do now, they whatever the surplus cash cow, whatever the surplus cash they get, they normally uh, they normally send surplus cash to invest in stars so that they become future cash cows because here the market share is high as well as market growth is also high, so they are likely to become future cash cows. Then suppose if they have still some surplus money, they may go for investing in question marks. That means
Hello, sir.
because there is a growth rate, even though their market share is less, but maybe putting extra money can convert them from question marks to stars, or if they fail here, they may come back here to dark position. So here there is a bit of risky investment on question mark, so that's why it is a question mark. Ah, are you, did you got the point?
Yes, sir, I am clear, sir. Someone was asking something.
Uh-huh.
Sir, but like if we take Microsoft as an example, like in one way they have Office, Microsoft Office, and other way they have Windows. In current versions, they are like they change the policies. Like you can't as your wish you can install Office and use it. Like you have to pay for it. Whereas MS Office, they are providing it for like if you are using it for unactivated version is also fine. We are providing much more services to the customers. Like
Hmm.
what will be what like how it is relevant to the cash cow and like question mark?
No, Microsoft has now it is in a position even it can subsidize the prices because whatever their investment they have made in the development of that product has long back it was recovered in terms of depreciation and then initial cost recovery. So in fact they decided that I should only charge nominally. See, This is what we call it as building entry barriers for the competitors. Entry barrier means like Google should not come with an alternative MS Office kind of product. If they put the price of the MS Office product sufficiently low, then there is no incentive for the Google to develop that product because hardly there is any profit margins for the Microsoft itself because it is betting on a low price strategy. You get the point?
Sir,
So
actually,
normally what people do now, like it is they always watch the market and see like for example, in order to kill Netscape, what Microsoft did is it gave Internet Explorer free. Even though it costed money to develop Internet Explorer, but Microsoft has such a beautiful capital reserves with it. It could afford to give one product free, and in the process, it has killed its uh, future competitor in the form of Netscape. So this is all part of. I told you, there is no difference between war and business. In both the cases, you try to outsmart or kill your competitor. So that's why US government sometimes it has started what is so-called anti-competitive practices. So against Microsoft in between. So antitrust law they call it as. So sometimes uh, companies cut corners to save themselves from being threatened by a new entrant. Okay.
sir, while added to that, Microsoft had another plans also, like another scheme it has opted, like while upgrading from Windows 7 to 10,
Hmm.
long back, like some years back.
Hmm.
Initially, for because it wasn't popular, no one wants to invest so much money in new operating system. No one
Hmm.
will say like it is upgraded version. You buy it, so no one will go directly. They want
Hmm.
user experience, like UI may be different. I may not be uh, well versed with that, and that so users may not buy it if it is costly. So what Microsoft did was it gave Windows 10 upgrade for free for Windows 7 users in the
Hmm.
initial date up to some point, but
Hmm.
it will end on some date, some after
Yeah, yeah.
1 year or so it ended the campaign, like free campaign. But what truth is that Microsoft did not close that option of upgrading. It
Hmm.
continued to run. It used to work even till past 4 5 months also.
Hmm.
Just because it knows that it don't want compete people who don't invest in operating system. They invest in hardware more than software. There are many
Hmm.
people. So what it did was it let people download Windows 10,
Hmm.
upgrade Windows 10 for free
Hmm.
until recently. But officially it was closed long back, like
Okay.
2016, I guess. So this is
No,
another way
actually,
of.
Microsoft's biggest threat is Linux
Yes,
because
sir.
Linux comes freely.
Also, it has many securities
Uh, so
since it's open source.
they that's why what we do in planning stage is we do some kind of what are the kind of threats we have immediate threats. Then we also work out our what is our strengths, weaknesses, and then we apply this BCG matrix. And there are several other forecast. You use some forecasting tools to forecast the things. So you do all these things, and then after performing this external and internal audit, then you come to the this stage formulating the new objective. So this new objective can be, see, like for example, I told you now, like Microsoft has found in one of its years, its objective is to kill the Netscape Navigator. It said like somehow, but by the end of this year, we will kill the Netscape Navigator. Then they, so what? Then they have fight to formulate a strategy to kill that Netscape Navigator. So for that, what they did is they said they decided that we will make a very very feature rich Internet Explorer, which is as good as Netscape Navigator, and give that particular Netscape Navigator freely as part of OS itself. In that way, within 1 year, they could eliminate Netscape Navigator out of the scene. And then, so if they have to, like, once they have decided that they have to, they will be giving this Netscape Navigator Internet Explorer free, they have, what they did is they have converted that freeness into some policies, detailed implementation steps, and milestones. Say, for example, they said like whoever buys Windows 7 or Windows, uh, they will get automatically one built-in icon on the desktop, so that they can immediately start exploring the net. And then they said like those who encourages or discourages Netscape Navigator, they will get some product concessions. No, they did a lot of things. In fact, that policies has finally landed Microsoft in antitrust law. So that is the, and then we have the last step, that is evaluating and reviewing the performance. So what you do is you come up with these milestones now. So you just check up whether the whether you have reached those milestones, or is there any need for reviewing the your strategy. See, sometimes your strategies may not work. Midway, you might have seen that the strategy, whatever you have decided, it has not worked. So you may have to do some kind of midterm correction. So that is what we mean by. So these are the detailed steps that is involved in planning function. All right. So next comes the organizing function. So in an organizing function, what we do is here. If you look at the evolution of so in essentially in organization function, what we do is we have to we adopt fundamentally one concept, that is division of labor. See, you have to appropriately divide the work among people. All right. Say, for example, just like we have 5 deans in our institute. Whoever, like there is a dean, whoever attends to the students' affairs, dean student affairs, dean what do you call faculty affairs. Then we have dean planning, dean R&C, research and consultancy. So we have dean IRAA. That means alumni affairs. So that means here director is dividing the work. Each dean addressing a particular issue of the organization. Each one addressing a particular stakeholder. See, in NIT Warangal, students are one stakeholders. Then we have faculty as one stakeholders. Then we have alumni people, and at the same time, like you need to do certain things like you have to conduct properly, streamline your academic processes. So for that, there is a dean academic affairs. You have to do some kind of research and consultancy. For that, again, there is a dean. So what we find is there is a division of labor. So in organizing, what happens is like just planning things is not your job. You have to see like how you are going to execute the plan. So for that, you have to organize. Similarly, like just like your spring spray technician, so you have so many committees now. Each committee looking after certain aspects, right? So there are so many STUCOs, student coordinators. So one for finance, then another guy looking after mm, hospitality. So here, what we are doing is we are only dividing the work. But see, you have to divide the work at the appropriately, right? See, it's like if you take a roadside kirana shop, roadside pawn shop, there is no need for division of labor there because this task is very simple. So he himself does the marketing for the he does marketing activities for the pawn shop. And then he will do his own finance. He will do his own production in the process of making pan. So he's an all-in-one kind of guy because it is a one-man organization. There is no need for division of labor there. But as the organization becomes bigger, then you have to divide the work appropriately. So if you take a company like BHEL, you have to divide the work at the level of plant level, that at the corporate level, then there are you centralize certain functions, you decentralize certain functions. Just like Henry Fayol said, na centralization, decentralization should be appropriately done. So what we do in organizing is dividing the work appropriately to level where an individual can do those things and defining roles and responsibilities, dividing the authority and responsibilities, and accountability. Right. So here we do this in as part of organizing. So in organizing, so actually this organizing, like how to organize our results. See, there is a bit of initially there was some kind of uh, people what you call initially people have tried some simple organ structures, but as uh, the in the modern era, the organizations have become very complex. See, for example, like if you take a company like Intel, they have a presence in almost say 50, 60 countries, and they have uh, they have to coordinate the activities of all these companies. Like in certain countries, they do only sales. In certain countries, they do production as well as sales. Like for example, a company like Intel has outsourced some of its production to China. So how to organize uh, how to manage one is like they have to appropriately categorize its operations, right? So in organizing, actually, so in fact, in the evolution of mankind, initially mankind started with simple organizations because things are not so complex. So, in fact, the first simplest organ structure we see in military. So, and there is a word for it. It is called line type of organization. So if you look at the evolutionary point of view, like you have line type of organ structure, then functional type, and then line type of organ structure, and then matrix type. So actually, more in fact, the other name for line type of organ structure is what you call military type, line type or military type or scalar type. So that means it is like a very simple organ structure, right? So it could be like this. So you have board of directors, you have president, vice president marketing, vice president they call vice president finance, and then we have vice president HRD, right? So under vice president operations, you have shop floor manager, deputy manager, assistant manager, supervisor, worker, and worker. So the flow of responsibility up the line and flow of authority down the line. Okay. So here there is a clear cut. This is a very clear cut organization. So in fact, this type of organ structure is still is in vogue. This is a kind of organ structure you see in uh, medium scale organization structures. Medium scale means the one which say like what good example we can give for this is a small product company, like a a company which has only one production plant and it makes simple products. Say for example, making supplying it can be an ancillary industry. It can be an ancillary industry, like let us say, which supplies connecting rods to, say, uh, some automobile company. All right. So, see, connecting rods, it supplies only few components like connecting rods and piston rings and pistons. Say to Tata Motors. There, those ancillary industries are very simple organizations. Like it will have, in fact, sometimes they may not have even board of directors. It starts with the owner, come president, and then you have vice president marketing, and then vice president operations, like that. So here it is a very simple organ structure, right? So, but what happened is this kind of organ structure seems to be lacking some kind of specialists, particularly in the production, the organization. Like for example, like you have vice president marketing, and then vice president finance, and then vice president HRD, right? But as the modern like if you take for example Ford Motors. So Ford Motors, a company like Ford Motors, which was started by uh, Henry Ford, it started becoming bigger and bigger, and naturally it was looking for some kind of specialist in various areas. Like there was a need for quality control manager, there was a need for maintenance engineer, there was a need for who decides the standards. Like so, uh, like when the complexity of the when the size of the organization increases, naturally the complexity of managing it also increases. So what happened is, to overcome this complexity of the organization, they have tried what is so called functional type of organization. So here, like if you look at the functional type of organ structure, this was actually proposed by our hero of this subject. Who is our hero of this subject? Hmm?
Taylor, F.W. Taylor.
Huh?
F.W. Taylor.
F.W. Taylor, Frederick Winslow Taylor, he designed this organ structure. So if you look at this organ structure, what happened is you have again board of directors, right? And this is then you have chief executive, then works manager, and then production manager. Under production manager, you have office specialists and then shop specialists, right? So there is a, and here he could incorporate specialists because as the organization becomes bigger, you need specialists. So who are the office specialists? Like you have route clerk, instruction clerk, time clerk, disciplinarian, shop disciplinarian, and then gang boss, repair boss, speed boss, and inspector boss. Say for example, what is the role of route clerk is he will come up. Actually, this is route, not rule. Like somehow there is a spelling mistake here. So it is a route clerk. Route clerk means he will decide what is the optimal route a component should take to, so that it comes out of the shop floor quickly. So he will do optimal route planning. Say for example, like you have to make certain component, complex component. See, normally this functional type of organ structure is normally a preferred one in job order production system. Whereas in mass production system, it may not have specialists. Whereas in job order production system, what happens is this is a, you need a lot of specialists because each component can be different in terms of its production requirement. So you have to, for example, route clerk here will optimize the route of a or the path of a component on the shop floor so that it comes out of the shop floor in as quick manner as possible and with optimal routing. Similarly, instruction clerk, what he will do once a route clerk he has given the route planning, at each machine, instruction clerk will issue instructions to each of those workers who are supposed to do operations on it, like how much speed, depth of cut, and what kind of cutting tool he has to use, what is the raw material that has to be used. You know, the kind of detailed instruction given by route clerk. He is the instruction clerk. He can be another popular name for instruction clerk is process planner. And then based on the instruction clerk, time clerk will time like how much time a worker should take to finish off those set of operations designated on a particular machine, right? And then that means he decides the standards, time standards. Like he is doing in a way what F.W. Taylor did when he was timing that Dutch worker. And then shop disciplinarian means whether the instruction given by instruction clerk and time clerk, whether the worker is following those instructions properly or not, whether there is a deviation. If there is a deviation, trying to investigate whether the deviation is done deliberately, or for example, like some accident might have happened, whether it is the fault of the instruction clerk instructions or whether it is the fault of the worker himself. So resolving those disputes. And then coming to gang boss, you see these are all shop specialists in the sense they sit in the shop. So whatever the route clerk has given instructions on how to navigate a particular component on the shop floor, gang boss is the corresponding implementer. He will implement the instructions of the route clerk. And then repair boss is your modern, what do you call? Repair, like if there is a some lathe or milling machine got repair, he will do that. He's an expert in repairing machines because machinist, the worker who is working on the machine, he may not be have the necessary capabilities of, just like auto. The auto driver is different from the guy who repairs the auto. Right? If there is a problem in the auto fellow will take that to auto repair shop. So similarly, in a machine floor, in a shop floor, if there is a problem with the machine, so the corresponding expert should come and attend to that. And then we have speed boss. So speed boss means whatever the time clerk and instructor clerk has recommended, he will see that whether the worker is following those instructions properly or not. And the last fellow is the inspector boss. He will just check up whether the whether the quality that is produced by the worker is of good at appropriate level or not. Whether any large scale rejections are coming out of a worker, right? And at the bottom level, so that means in this type of functional type of organ structure, you could accommodate specialists, and this is actually seems to be a very good what do you call very good organ structure for job order production system, because in a way because you need a lot of specialists. So this is the kind of organ structure our F.W. Taylor recommended, and in fact, this particular functional organ type of organ structure, what it says is like here at the bottom level, you find that the workers are like here, they have to listen to all these 8 functional specialists. Office, there are 4 office specialists and there are 4 top specialists, and that means in this kind of organ structure, what happened is each of these workers should listen to 8 foremen. So that means all the 8 foremen will be instructing the lower level workers. So every worker on the shop floor has to listen to these 8 bosses. So naturally, like when you have too many bosses, it is very difficult to control the workers, because if the worker is really smart, he can create friction between different bosses, saying that, sir, you have instructed like this, but the other foreman is saying different thing. So what happened is, even though Frederick Taylor has worked with this particular organ structure very well, subsequently whoever tried to implement this organ structure, they could not work with this organ structure. See, because as you have seen in the principles of management, 14 principles given by Henry Fayol, which of those there is a violation of one particular principle? What is that?
Only one should be boss.
So unity of command. So here,
Everyone.
this particular type of organ structure violates that one of those principles of management, that is unity of command. So a worker should not end up having particularly 8 type of bosses is very too much to bear. See, you may have 2, 3 bosses, but to the extent of 8 bosses, each worker having 8 bosses means it is mostly chaotic to maintain such kind of environment. So what happened? This functional type of organ structure, only Taylor could manage. See, why only Taylor could manage is because Taylor is an extraordinary man. He is a genius, but we don't find genius so frequently in our day-to-day life now. So what happened? Whoever has copied this functional type of organization, they failed to manage with this kind of organ structure. So as an offshoot of this failure, it gave rise to another kind of organ structure. We call it as line and staff. So here we can see in this line and staff, what we find is like you have a president, then you have line authority, staff authority, right? So you have legal advisor, right? So, um, like a legal advisor is he works under president. So, for example, legal advisor will tell you some do's and don'ts of how finance of a company should be maintained, how production system should work, and how. So, for example, like vice president sales might have some kind of staff authority on production supervisor. So, dotted lines, they are called as staff authority. Whereas line authority is like line. The difference between line and staff is, so you can normally staff authority, they have like for example, if a company has to go for loan, what kind of route, like the legal advisor nod has to be taken by the vice president finance, right? So even though vice president finance, his immediate boss is only the president, but in certain aspects, you should get the nod from, see, like legal advisor is not the boss of vice president, but occasionally, like you should take the legal advice from the legal advisor when it question of whether I can raise what do you call, whether I should go for initial public offer. Suppose you are planning to go for initial public offer, shares, issuing shares. So the legal advisor should will have the authority whether this vice president is taking proper precautions with regard to collecting finance from the public, issue of debentures. Similarly, like vice president sales, like occasionally vice president sales will be taking legal advisors opinion regarding like what are the do's and don'ts of paying commission to sales agents, you know. So here again vice president sales will have some authority on the, so like that so this line and staff organization structure is a very important development in the organizing function of and then we have matrix type. So here you have general manager, production, finance and marketing, then you have project managers. So this is what we call it as. So that means here the production group has two bosses. So here there is a clear violation of unity of command. But here production group will have only two bosses instead of 8. So as the organization structure becomes complex, sometimes you may have to violate certain principles of management given by Henry Fayol. Like one of them is unity of command. So unity of command is we knowingly violate in matrix type. So you have project B. See, normally this kind of org structure is followed. Let us say in say L&T, because so L&T will be handling different projects now. Like for example, metro rail. There is one, that is one project. Then they have oil platforms. Then they have defense production. So defense production, like recently they have delivered, I think, one battle tank to our army. So they have projects with respect to different infrastructures. They make oil platforms, they make, they run metro rails. So they are project type, and they have at the central level at L&T, they have production, finance, marketing, and R&D. So, here production production assistant manager, he should be listening to both a project lead as well as production. Right? So finance guy, he will be answerable to both the center corporate finance vice president as well as project manager. So like this, you see that most of the multinationals, MNCs, they have this matrix type of organization structure. And then you have, network organization structure. So here it may be like there is a core firm. So there is a supporting firms behaved around the hub, or so, and then alliance firms creating a product. So for example, Caterpillar, it might have outsourced the product development to its unit in India. Like just like GE has a R&D center in Bangalore, right? So there is an assembly partner, packaging design partner, call center partner. So in fact, now you see most of the MNCs follow this particular network organization structure. So we have evolved from simple line type to functional type, line and staff, and then matrix type, and then supply chain type. So in tomorrow's class, what we will do is how people normally go about designing organization structures. Okay, so probably like, so we will meet tomorrow and start discussing on this design of organization.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, can you say info about minors? Minor, when will we have one? Syllabus? Minor exams. When will we have our minor exam syllabus?
Minor exam probably maybe next week.
Okay. Sir. And the syllabus, sir?
Syllabus will be this general management and marketing management.
Okay, sir.
Okay.